Good morning. It's June 28th, and it's a Monday, so that means walking along the creek in some fashion, or at least for part of the walk. That's the tradition. That's what I do on a Monday. This must never be changed. One of these days you pull out a prop, and where does it stop? Where does it stop? Next thing you know, you're singing Fiddler on the Roof songs while walking down the street. That's what happens. So, I think I will go down to the creek as usual. Walk along it as usual. And then we'll see about the coming back. What route I take. It's a nice morning. It's pleasantly cool at the moment. It's going to 26 or 7 today, so not horrendously hot. Another basically cloudless morning. Excuse me. Got a frog in my throat. How it got there, I have no idea. Down this side just because there's a big camper on that side, which is kind of boring to walk beside. Everybody's yards and flowers and stuff are out now. It is summer. Why, it probably won't frost for a good, if we're lucky, it doesn't frost for about 2.5, 3 months. So what's on my agenda today? Editing. Revising The Tangled Stars, my next novel for DAW Books, coming out next year. Editing Shapers of Worlds Volume 2, the anthology I kickstarted that will feature short fiction by science fiction and fantasy authors who were guests on my Aurora award-winning podcast, The World Shapers. That's at theworldshapers.com. Doing its second year, a follow-up to last year's Shapers of Worlds, which is now available in both print and ebook formats, which featured first-year guests, which was also kickstarted last year. Anyway, I've got all the stories except 2. 3 if you count mine. I do have to write one myself, which I will. Not worried about that one. I know it will come in when I need it. And I would expect the book will be out in September, which is when last year's version came out. The only important thing is to have it out in plenty of time before Christmas, for people who are really anxious to give it as a Christmas present. Just go this way to avoid running into the trees there. So that's all going. I'm also having a chat this afternoon with Arthur Slade, who's a Saskatchewan author, Governor General's Award-winning author, who's done a lot of independent publishing himself and has been more successful at it than I have. I'm going to talk to him about. I seem to have a good and not doing as well as I should. See what happens here with the bushes if I lose the signal up here. It's very annoying that other people use the path as well as me. See lots of old roses and the bushes along the path here. And sure enough, I'm already getting an unstable internet connection. I haven't even gone behind the trees yet. So that's concerning. Hopefully it hangs in there. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, say hi. I will say hi back if I can see your note. Kind of holding back a bit so I don't catch her. This is where I expect to see the unstable internet because of the tunnel effect of the trees. It's actually hanging in there pretty well at the moment. I don't know what all that noise is over there. Don't know if you can hear it, but I can. On the other side of the bushes, the other side of the river. Oh, it's mowing the grass, that's what it is. Oops. Good morning, Miriam. Beautiful day here. Hope it is in India. As we cross the familiar footbridge, take our traditional look down the creek to the east and down the creek to the west. Very still this morning, the water. That's where the noise is coming from. Mowing the grass. Something I didn't do this weekend. It hadn't grown enough, I felt I had to. Alright, now that I'm not following somebody, I'll pick up the pace a little. I haven't actually walked down this side just on the path for a couple of times, so I'll stay on the path today. I won't take the little side path that takes you closer to the creek. Hello, Roger. I know you said something, but I can't quite read it. Yeah, right. That's what I need, a 20-foot antenna. That would keep me from glitching. Perhaps I could hire somebody to follow behind and carry it for me. Or a parabolic mic. I could just walk and they could walk on the other side of the creek with a parabolic mic and capture my commentary. Yeah, that's the ticket. Very blackbird up there. Not a red-winged blackbird, just a black bird. I don't know what that is. We'll take a little turn through the waterfall park, go over the footbridge, because the water seems to be coming down particularly enthusiastically today. It was kind of anemic the last time I came this way, but it looks like it's falling well today. We'll go across the bridge, which currently has a couple of crows on it. I always like it. It's like this little mountain feel over here with the pines and the rocks and the water falling. And the crows cawing. There we go. Waterfall's doing quite nicely today. can hear the crow maybe. I certainly can. Or Moy, this one on the bridge. Coming your way, crow. How long are you going to sit there? Aha. There were 2 crows on the bridge, which of course is an attempted murder of crows. Ba-dum-bum. An old joke, but a good one. See, the flowers are in here. Still have some growing to do to reach their peak, but looking nice. All right, back to the path. The last couple of times I've walked through the bushes over here, but today I'll stay on the paved path. Here you can see it. It is nice down in there. A little more mosquito-y, I would think, especially in the morning. Here's the park that really needs a new sign. Baseball park. Here's the other path. Is she taking the dogs for a run, or are the dogs taking her for a run? Hard to tell. Always dogs on the path. Usually accompanied by people, as one would hope. Morning. Oh, there's a bush in full flower. Well, technically 3 bushes in full flower, it looks like. We have one of those in our front yard, but it's pretty scraggly. It's grown very, very slowly, and when it does flower, it's like 2 or 3. Too much shade, I think, where it is. Our whole front yard is very thoroughly shaded by a couple of big spruce trees and 2 caragana hedges on either side. One reason our grass is not exactly happy either. Coming up next on this exciting walk, the horseshoe pitch. I'm going to write a book called Horseshoes, just so I could say to somebody, some editor or publisher, I'd like to pitch you my horseshoe. Have I ever given you my horseshoe pitch? Wait for it. Don't get too excited yet. It's not quite in sight. And only once in 120 videos or something, not that I come this way every day, but in the time I've been doing those, only once have I actually seen anybody playing horseshoes over here. But I presume it happens more often. I'm just not walking past it in prime horseshoe. Here, Let's go take a closer look. I've never done that. There you go. The horseshoe pitch. You stand at one end, you toss your horseshoe at the other end. That's how it works. The actual rules, I'm sure there are some. I never knew them. Growing up in Missouri and Texas and places like that, I certainly saw people play horseshoes. And I have thrown a horseshoe once in a while. But I don't remember the rules. Presumably it's whichever one's closest to the pin or something like that. Sort of like curling. Oh, there's somebody else. It is. It is a great day. A lovely day. One mon 22 means there must be at least 21 other one mons on YouTube. There's a few other Ed Willets. I don't know if they're on YouTube or not. There's a very well-known Ed Willett who's a cello player. Lives in Wisconsin and has he and I think it's just the two of them, cello and I'm not sure which he plays, called Chance. And if you Google him, he's always showing up doing Chautauqua events and things like that in Wisconsin. But I think he's best known for having played the theme song for Northern Exposure, or performed on the theme music for Northern Exposure, which is a very old TV show now. There was an Ed Willett who was a professional baseball player for the Detroit Tigers about 1909 that I've encountered in my Googling, and a few others. There's a golfer, some sort of bureaucrat in Australia. I think my favorite was, there's an Ed or Edward Willett who was one of the Tuskegee Airmen, the Black Air Squadron during the Second World War. Proud to share a name with him. And then there were other authors. There's a 19th century Edward Willett who wrote, for example, a biography of Ulysses S. Grant, but he also wrote a lot of what were called dime novels. So lots of Western adventure stories with titles like Kip the Flatboat Boy. And he wrote a fantasy called Asperix the Enchanted Dwarf. And it's in public domain now, and I'm strongly tempted to do something with it. Retell it, or I don't know, just because of his name. Something noisy coming. And then in the 18th century, there's an Edward Willett who pops up with a book called Letter to Mrs. Bellamy on the Occasion of Her Apology. Weird title. People with bells that don't use them. I fully expect to get hit by a bicycle someday, because bicyclists think pedestrians know they're coming, but you can't actually hear them until they zip right by you. And then you just hope that you don't suddenly turn the wrong way. Okay, well, there's the creek today. Very still. Looking the other way. Looks like summer. It's also quite high. Yeah, the creek is still quite high. onto the path that winds entirely for aesthetic reasons, not because it's trying to get you anywhere. Anyway, a letter to Mrs. Bellamy on the occasion of her apology. Edward Willett was not an author, he was a lawyer, apparently. And Mrs. Bellamy was a fairly notorious character who had, according to her, had an entirely platonic relationship with a famous actor of the day. And then when he died, she tried to get his money, his estate, and I think Edward Willett was the lawyer representing him, if I remember right. There's an article I wrote about it on my website. I'd have to look it up to remember exactly the details. And she had written something called her apology, which was, you know, her excuse for her somewhat sordid life. And then she was trying to, I think she badmouthed the lawyer because he wouldn't let her have this actor's estate, even though there was nothing from him giving it to her, if I remember right. Something like that. And so this short piece by him was basically taking her apart in public and in print. And it survives, and you know, the details of the affair don't matter to anybody anymore, and haven't for, you know, a century or two, a couple of centuries. But that book still survives, and if you Google Edward Willett, it will come up. It's not mine. But the thing is, on Amazon and places like that, those books will show up if you're looking for Edward Willett books. So you will see that I apparently have been writing since at least the 19th and possibly the 18th century. I'm very well preserved, one might say. Morning, Kirk. Unfortunately, I don't get any money for the sale of those other Edward Willis books. Nobody does. Well, somebody's getting it, but nobody's buying them, I wouldn't think. They're public domain, so anybody can put out a version of them. I like these sort of silvery leafed trees at this time of the year. They stand out from they almost look like flowering trees. They really stand out among the darker leaved trees. I don't know what they are. I should, but I don't. Silver leaved something or other, I guess. I don't know. Ghost trees.
Yeah, okay, but yeah, I don't. Yeah, get out of here. What kind of dog is it?
All right, we're going to keep going this way and go under the bridge today, I think, and go a little further into the next section of the walk. I don't want to cross the Louvain, so I won't go that far. But another bicyclist doesn't tell you he's there. So all I have to do is suddenly go, look at that, and point out to my left, and I would hit these guys. I used to think about that when I was a cyclist. I'm not sure I was very good about announcing my presence, though. So I do know why people don't do it. They just don't think of it. But now that I spend all my time walking and having bicycles zip by me, I think about it more. Running with a mask on. I just don't understand why anybody would do that. I don't know what's the thought process but somehow that makes them safe. From what? Fresh air? I just don't get it. In fact, it's almost certainly less healthy. As I said, the creek is quite high. Over here. Some of our local wildflowers, dandelions. They are wildflowers. Nobody thinks of them that way, but they are. A weed is just a plant growing where you don't want it to grow. That's the Pasco Street Bridge. We'll go under that today. Again, no warning as they go by. It's like 3 in a row. Makes me want to walk down the middle, because that's just the kind of cantankerous old grouch I am. You can see how close the water is to the edge down here, so it doesn't take much of a rise in the lake level or the creek level for water to be on this particular walkway. Very still though, look at the reflections. Another ball diamond here, which we will walk down alongside, because I don't want to cross the Louvain and go that far. We'll walk over by those apartment buildings again, which I've done before, I think, is what I'll do. And maybe all the way up to 13th in that direction, and then work my way back from there. So leaving the creek for the moment, it carries on, and of course I have walked a very long way out along it, but not by starting here. I started further up. And I'll start even further up one of these days and see how far I can get. Sort of waiting for the government house gardens to be in full bloom, because they'd be cool to walk through. Don't know what this field is called. Another one of the many city-owned ball diamonds, I would guess. Actually has some stands and sort of dugouts. Not technically dugout, they're more like lean-tos, but kind of like dugout. They're still called dugout. Now, hopefully we don't find huge clouds of mosquitoes once I hit the grass here. Not that they'll bother you, but I'd rather they didn't bother me. It's quite sunny out here. They tend to like to hang out in the shade in the mornings, where you'll often find them. On the golf course, where they seem to hang out everywhere. Like a smorgasbord golf course. Now we're getting some nettles here too. I hadn't thought about them. Probably stopped coming this way for that reason. They're more annoying than mosquitoes. See, These ones, oh, there's the mosquitoes, now that I stopped. Very prickly. And I have bare legs, so I don't think I will walk through here again after today. Well, along the sidewalk, we can get in the shade. Yes, so I found mosquitoes and nettles. And the mosquitoes have followed me. There's one buzzing around my ear. What is this place where I am now? It's just some apartment buildings. The Lou van over there is one of the higher speed north-south route. Nice and shady in here anyway. I hear pigeons. If they're on somebody's balcony, they're going to regret it. We had pigeons on our balcony, and boy, do they make a mess when we lived in a condo. They kind of got in there without us realizing it and nested under some chairs that had a cover on them, so it made a secluded place underneath. Yeah, it made a huge mess. We had to have a pest control person come in and clear them out. Well, we'll mosey all the way up to 13th and then kind of zigzag back towards the house and see how that works out for us. I can't decide if I'm using the royal we when I do that. I mean, there are people watching, so it is kind of us, but you're not really here, so it's not really us. See, if you don't get home delivery, you pick up your mail in one of these. We actually still get home delivery, which is nice. Grandfathered in or something, I don't know. I think anything new. And even some places that used to get home delivery now have these super boxes. Have had for years. Could walk down 13th today just to be different. Not zigzag, at least not right away. If I zigzag, I don't get very far over here. I just hit the park and then I'm back where I always walk. Yes, we've had some good rain. Not that, well, even this last week there were a couple of rainy nights. So the grass is still looking very good. Even if you don't water your grass. And there's the places that we just as soon not worry about grass. There's somebody on our crescent has taken out all their grass and put in a non-green lawn. Rocks and mulch. Looks like some lawn mowing is in order for many of them along here. Oop. Okay. Brandon's Planes and Trains. I like planes and trains and automobiles and movies by that name. A house for sale if you'd like to move to Regina. It's a small house, probably not too expensive. And there's a couple of brand new ones built along here. Martin's School of Dance. Used to be not on this corner, but on the next corner, in an old church. And since my daughter danced, not with them, but I was always aware of that. And I was in there. Why was I in there? Maybe my daughter's studio was using their space for some reason because, well, of course, my daughter's studio burned down at one point, and there was some scrambling there for a while until they got a new place. So this is 13th. A lot of traffic here as people come off the new van behind me. We'll go down this way at least a bit, just because I haven't for a while. Oh, it is quite sunny, so I may not see text very well here for a bit, if anybody says anything else. That alone makes me think maybe I want to go over one block. Get some shade under the trees. Not much to see along here anyway. Let's take the alley behind the 7-Eleven. Where else are you going to find high quality content like that? An alley behind a 7-Eleven in Regina, Saskatchewan this may very well be the first time that's ever appeared on YouTube or Facebook. You saw it here first. Garbage day today, at least in our neighborhood, I presume here too. The brown bins are garbage and the blue bins recycling. Always feels like you're in the country on these unpaved alleys, because any small town in Saskatchewan would look like this, except perhaps where the garbage bins and the recycle bins would be different or not non-existent, depending on how it's handled locally. So we'll walk along 14th instead. Now, not much improvement on the sun side. This side might be a little shadier. Started a lot of overhanging trees along here. The park is just one more block down that way, and the creek. Song running through my head today is from In the Heights, which we saw. So that kind of sticks in my head. So scavengers go looking through the recycle bins so they can take it to Sarcan and get a little money for it. That's who that was back there. Just because I'm tired of walking on the long, straight, sunny sidewalk. There should be an alley along here I can take for variation. It's up here. No, there is no alley on this block. Well, who knew? I thought there was going to be one right here, but it's not. Huh. That surprises me. At least it's nice and shady. Some newer houses along here too, as well as the older, smaller ones. It's kind of pretty typical through the whole area around here now. Really small ones, old ones like that, newer ones like that, and the occasional one that's both new and radically different from the houses that were originally built here. I don't want to go into the park just yet, although I am right where I could take the walkway, but maybe I'll zig back up again. Here's an alley. I'll go up this alley. Really just stretching out the walk, because if I just head straight back, it'll be a bit shorter than usual. Oh, what's that? They do not take, Toronto, they don't take pop cans, they only take beer cans. Why on earth would be the reason for that? What on earth would be the reason for that? Different materials. These bins take everything that's recyclable, except for lawn waste, and there's a pilot project, I run into it not far from here, with green bins into which you're supposed to put yard waste, sort of compostable stuff. I think you can put, like food waste in it, and certainly yard waste. I don't know how that's going. It hasn't been brought to our neighborhood yet. All right, it's 14th again. This will take us by Connaught School up here on our left. Playground in a couple of blocks. Again, so we just came back up from the park down there. One day this week, I think I'll do in the Cathedral area what I did in the transition area last week, and do a very thorough up one block and down up one street and down the other, from College to 13th and back, and sort of cover off the whole block between Elphinstone and Albert, based on how long it took to do just a portion of the transition area. That'll be a full hour right there, even though it seems like a small area. But when you walk every street, it adds up. 18th down there. Ah, good, a little more shade. Oh, another note. Turns out that's to pay a fee for your pop cans. You can put them in the blue bin, but you can't take them in for money. Huh. Oh. I don't know. The hassle of taking them in for money has never been worth it to me. So I don't actually know what all the rules are. The only thing I usually take to Sarkin is they do have an electronics recycling program. And so, you know, like we have an 8-track player I keep meaning to take down there, that sort of thing. Old computers. Sastel has a, those are pretty. Sastel has a cell phone recycling option, although a lot of these things, of course, haven't been happening at all because of COVID, but I do have several old, I think I have old cell phones going back to my Nokia from 1997 or whatever that was. A little black and white screen. I remember playing a game on it. It was like a snake would go around and around and get longer, and you had to keep redirecting it so it didn't run into itself. And no, it was like, wow, you can play a game on your phone. And now my daughter's playing this huge immersive game called Genshin Impact, and she plays that on her phone. So with graphics that we wouldn't have believed back when I was much more of a computer gamer than I am now. There's Connaught School over there. Brand new one that replaced a very old one that was not in good shape. And as I've said before, people from the neighborhood and people who had gone to the old school really didn't want to see the old school torn down because of character and all that. And yet, if you're a kid, you'd much rather go to that than something that was built in 1914. So, you know, one generation of kids going through the new school, which they may already be at, probably not quite yet, yeah, nobody will give it a thought. You know what's that? My first car stereo was an 8-track. I thought they were so cool. Well, it wasn't mine, it was my big brother's, but he put it in our car. I thought it was so cool. What do I remember listening to on it? We didn't have that many 8-tracks. Jonathan Livingston Seagull. That's one I really enjoyed. Neil Diamond, soundtrack to Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Statler Brothers. I remember listening to the Statler Brothers. My parents were country fans, and so I was too in a way. Funny thing is, we have an old car in our garage, a 1977 Cadillac Eldorado, largest single family passenger car ever built. It's in really good shape. It hasn't run for a couple of years. I need to get it running because it'll just deteriorate if it sits there. There's always kids' artwork along here. It has a built-in 8-track. That was the hottest thing. It was never a particularly great technology. Whenever you got to the end of the tape, it had to reverse, and so there was often a big gap between the last song and the next song. And over time, the recordings would bleed over from track to track. So you'd hear faint, ghostly sounds of the songs on the other tracks. So the cassette came along, and the first cassette player I had in a car was actually an adapter that played you plugged into your 8-track player, but then you played a cassette in it. It was very clever, and it worked. But obviously worked better once we had actual. So I think the first new car I bought did not have I think it had a cassette player built in. And then the next one I bought had a CD player. First CD player I owned was the one that was in that car, 1990 Plymouth Laser. And then, now, of course, we rarely play a CD, once in a blue moon, but mostly we stream things off of our phone. I was going to walk along that path, but for some reason there's people there. So we'll go up to 13th for another block or two. Could walk back in there, but I doubt they really want me to. Thought it'd be interesting to walk behind this building, and maybe you can, but I might get trapped back there somewhere. Because this is it was a nunnery at one point, as I understand it. It's been condos and apartments for a long time. It is quite an attractive building. Has a very lovely little chapel in it from its religious days, which I've sung in years ago. I used to know somebody who lived here, but again, that was years ago. I once took a girl who lived in that building over there out on a date. Once. The only one we had, so you know, don't even remember her name. They call it Cathedral Courts now. It still has the cross up on top. Because right next to it, and we'll now go back the other ways, is the cathedral, which I've walked by many times, and I'm about to do so again. Holy Rosary Cathedral, right here. Back up, look way up, and there's the towers and the sun. Very dramatic lighting effects. Am I good or what? It's quite a Spartan interior. Not one of your Baroque cathedrals, that's for sure. I've sung in there too. Still have a record player, but I actually bought it just a few years ago. It was a little premature. I bought it because it's designed to burn records onto CDs. But it takes a lot of babysitting to make that happen. And of course, what I should have done was, had I but known, waited. Now you can get turntables, and they just put your records into digital files, which you can then do whatever you want to, including putting them on a CD. And I wish I had one of those, because we have a lot of records. Including quite a large collection of Broadway original recordings and stuff like that. This is the school, Holy Rosary School. It must be like on the last day or something close to it. I don't walk down this street very often. Let's walk down this street. This is Garnet Street, which I actually lived on at one time, but not up here. Okay, I've definitely stretched this out to make it an hour by the time I get home. And then some, I think. He's doing some landscaping. That's what all the noise is. That's that. There's lots of big churches around. That's our, well, I don't know, it's probably not even the biggest. It's the biggest old church. There's some big, sort of more utilitarian, more recent denominations in the Catholic Church with some big churches. Not that high and impressive, but actual number of seats they would have probably bigger. Four-way stop, so a good place to cross the street. Sang at a Christmas Eve service in that church once. I'm not Catholic, but they needed a singer. I remember it because, oh, I told you it was garbage day. Because I would normally at the time have gone down to visit my parents in Weyburn for Christmas. And because of singing in that Christmas Eve service, I didn't actually get down there until Christmas Day, which was unusual. And a bit fraught because you never know what the weather's going to be. If a storm had blown in, I might not have made it to home to Christmas at all. But I did. Weyburn's about an hour south of here, southeast, south and southeast. You go south first, then you go southeast. And that's where I grew up. It's a town of about 10,000, where I started my career as a newspaper reporter, photographer, and eventually editor at the Weyburn Review in my 20s. I was news editor at the age of 24, which still kind of blows my mind thinking about it. I did that for 4 years before I came to Regina as communications officer at the Saskatchewan Science Center. Was there for 5 years, quit my job in 1993, and I've been a full-time freelancer ever since, with a little bit of contract work a couple of times where I worked somewhere for full-time for, 4 months or 6 months, just filling in for somebody. But no full-time, long-term job since 1993. But I married an engineer in 1997, which was a good career move from a stable income point of view. This is our crescent. We just keep walking and I'll be home. Or I'll be home. I don't know where you are. Maybe you're home. And it's another four-way stop, so another good place to cross the street. Still want to keep an eye out though, because like that guy, a lot of people roll through these stops. If the city really wanted to make some money, they'd set up cameras at all the four-way stops and nab everybody that doesn't come to a complete stop. It's all downhill. There's a really big spruce down at this end. And bigger, these are elms. And those are spruce. All planted. All little trees when the neighborhood was started. So the elms must be 100 years old by now, and probably some of the spruce as well. A few years ago, this Crescents neighborhood was named by some magazine in the States as one of North America's best old house neighborhoods, because so many of the original houses continue to exist and have been taken care of. There's a few new ones, a few have gone. There's one for sale again if you'd like to be my neighbor, or almost my neighbor. Doing renovations over there, it looks like. Some interesting designs along here, house-wise. Oh, I'm gonna break an ankle yet by not paying attention to where I put my feet. Again, all the yards have their flowers and stuff in them now. Looks very nice. We will just stop at the next intersection down here, which is close to my house, and that'll be the end of this walk, which should come in at just over an hour. That house over there with the long sloping roof has a very interesting interior. It doesn't have much of a footprint out front, and it looks like it shouldn't be that big, but it was on the home tour a few years ago, and it's actually very interesting inside. My wife wanted to buy it, but we didn't. Another sign of summer, boats parked on the street. Another big bin, that usually means somebody else is doing renovations of some sort. Or moving out and getting rid of stuff. I like their little gazebo. It actually has mosquito netting on it. You can sit out there and enjoy it even when the mosquitoes are bad, as they sometimes are. All right, well, this is my corner. So, thank you for walking with me today, and I'll be back tomorrow. Bye for now.